My next guest is an Australian original, a girl of the desert, who with the help of her musical family has grown up to become one of our hottest exports, breaking all sales records along the way. In America, they're starting to pencil her name in alongside the greats. At home, she's a happy mum, a keen fisher person, and about as popular as it's possible to be. Ladies and gentlemen, Kasey Chambers. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Been trying for a long time. Now, yours was not a conventional childhood, was it? What was life like for you as a kid?
It was very different. It wasn't different for me at the time. I didn't know any better, but my dad was a fox hunter, and when I was about 3 weeks old, he packed up the family, my brother and myself and my mum, and headed off to live on the Nullarbor Plain in our car and hunt foxes for a living.
So you drove around with your dad hunting foxes?
Yeah, lived in the car, had bunks all made up in the back and all of that, and different place every night.
And I presume night time is the best time to hunt foxes?
Yeah.
So it wasn't like driving along and suddenly slam on the brakes and...
No, we'd head off about sundown. My dad would get all the camp packed up and off we'd go, and he'd hunt foxes all through the night, and then through the course of the night my brother and myself would get in our bunks, and my mum, she'd get in the bunk and off we'd go to sleep, and Dad would keep hunting and then get up in the morning and explore the camp wherever we were, and then head off.
Because the Nullarbor, it's actually a pretty magical place, but there's not a lot there. What did you do?
Well, I mean, this is like the first 10 years of my life, so it's pretty easy to amuse at that time. We sort of, you know, my brother and I would sit around, you know, making cubby houses and all of that sort of thing. My mum taught us correspondence schooling, so we did that for a while, and sit around the campfire and play songs. My dad would get out the guitar, and that's sort of how all that side of it started.
Okay. So is that where you started to get the bug for
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. I sort of... we started the Dead Ringer Band, which was my mum and dad and my brother and myself, and we travelled around for a while doing that, and I used to just get up and sing a few songs each night, and I didn't really think too much of it. It was just sort of part of life for us. And then my dad took me to see Roseanne Cash, Johnny Cash's daughter, when I was about 12, and on the show was Roseanne Cash, Mary Chapin Carpenter and Lucinda Williams, who has ended up being sort of my biggest female musical role model, and it's the first time I'd seen her, and I just decided from that moment on that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to write songs and sing them. So
before you started touring at about 10, your mum and dad settled down after this nomadic existence at Southend, and you went to school. Was it hard to do that after such a gypsy existence and 1 hour of school a day?
I guess it was it was a lot easier to adapt being younger. You know, I was 10 when we went back and moved back there, so... And I was excited, you know, I was excited to be around other kids. You are excited,
you're an excited person.
I'm always excited. I'm Big Kev. I'm very excited.
If you're Big Kev, I need new glasses. Did the other kids' lives... Because you've been out in this huge open world, did the other kids' lives seem small to you after the Nullarbor?
Oh, not really. We just kind of adapted to anything, you know, and I was just happy to be around other kids my age a little bit, you know. And I never got that much into school, I have to say. I think maybe that, you know, the gypsy kind of lifestyle and only going to school for an hour a day and that sort of thing made it slightly hard, I think, later on when I went to high school, and I just wasn't really all that interested.
Is that right? Would you, after an hour, sort of go, well, you know, that's the day?
Yeah, that's it for me now.
Well, when you were 14, the headmaster basically gave you a leave pass. He said, go and do music. You must bless that man.
Sort of. He actually hasn't given me a leave pass, yes.
You're playing
so technically, I think I still might go there, but, we started travelling away a lot then when I was about 13 and 14, and I was still going to school at that time, but missing out on a lot of it, you know. But, you know, what I thought, I was happy to be away and sort of enjoying that sort of lifestyle and learning about a different side of the world. And, you know, Nash left school quite early as well. And
well, you mentioned the Dead Ringer Band. I mean, you're in the School of Life. We have some footage here of the DRB, as I know them, the Dead Ringer Band. Here they are.
I was born in the country.
What's wrong with that? Well, what do you think when you look at that? I saw Nash going, oh.
Well, I'm wearing cowhide for a start. What's all that about?
But it was probably freshly shot. It's all right.
Oh, dear.
What do you think?
I mean, you know, it's slightly embarrassing to look at those things, but that was a great time. I loved that so much. I mean, I got to, you know, leave school and go and travel around Australia playing music, you know, playing in pubs. I wasn't even old enough to be in a pub, but they let you in because, you know, you were working. So I just loved it. It was really, really good.
Because you were actually, even then, you were travelling pretty rough, weren't you? Living out of truck stops and things like that?
Luckily we were still living pretty much in our car then. We had, you know, just a Toyota Land Cruiser and a trailer on the back that was actually the same trailer that we had on the back in the, on the Nullarbor. We sort of converted it into a music van and took all the gear on the road. And we lived out of Swags for the first sort of about 3 or 4 years. And just, we'd, you know, have showers and that in the truck stops and go and do a gig and then camp out the road and sleep in the Swags under the stars. It was great. I loved it. I couldn't do it now, though. I've gotten too used to my
You've gone soft, have you?
Yeah.
Do you have foxes in your backstage ride? Just want to shoot one before I go on stage. Nash, it must be very hard just living out of the one vehicle, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it was very difficult. I mean, there was an incredible part about it, and I guess an incredible closeness that we still close today. But it was very difficult, and like most artists that start off, it's extremely difficult to just survive, and I think that's a lot of why we all end up living in one house for quite a few years and everything. You just physically can't afford to do it. So, but I guess looking at it, the good things we've got out of it, especially now, far outweigh the bad. When you were with the Dead Ringers, you would busk in Tamworth and draw massive crowds. That must have been really fun.
Oh, it was great, yeah. Well, I remember, well, the first year we went to Tamworth, we sort of rocked up and we thought, you know, we'll just go to a pub and see if they'll give us a gig. You know, it was at festival time. We didn't realise you had to sort of book a year in advance to get a gig there. And we just rocked up and knocked on all these doors of these pubs and everyone's like, oh, we're all booked out for the week. So we thought, you know, we'll just set up on the street there and see if anyone will come. And luckily we had a heap of people come along and we sort of, you know, got a lot of gigs out of that, you know, after, you know, pubs would see it and, you know, give us a gig for next year. The Gympie Muster booked us out of that. You know, we got an EMI record deal from someone at the Gympie Muster. So, you know, it sort of all works out like that.
I love that, the Gympie Muster. That's fantastic. I think when you were 14, you beat your dad in a songwriting contest. You both entered in the same contest.
And I still don't let him forget it.
That's the thing, because when a kid first beats their parent at something that their parent's good at, it's often quite a seminal moment. Was it like that for you?
Well, I remember we went in this competition. It was actually at the Port Pirie Country Music Festival in South Australia, and we both entered the songwriting competition, and I came first, and Dad came second, and Nash came third. So we were very happy about that.
There was some tension in the back of the van that night, I'll bet. Do you remember the song you wrote?
Oh, yes, I do. It was the first song I'd ever written. It was actually after I went to see Lucinda Williams and I thought, oh, I want to be a songwriter now. And I sat down and I wrote this song, and it's called Becky. It was actually, one of my good friends is Becky Cole, and she used to be in the Dead Ringer band back at that stage, and I wrote that song about her, and oh, it's the worst thing you've ever heard. It's so bad. It's such a bad song.
I'm not going to ask you to sing.
Well, I wouldn't anyway.
Actually, I am. How does it go? Well, let's skip forward to when you're about 21 and your parents separated. As you said, family very close. And this wasn't just like a band breaking up. This is the family breaking up.
Yeah.
That must have been really tough.
It was. It was a really kind of strange time. I guess, you know, for Nash and I was like 21, Nash was 24. So we were sort of over that, blaming ourselves, you know, that sort of thing. But it was a massive thing that was like, and my mum and dad had like a really happy marriage as well, and they had up until, you know, the last few years. So luckily that kind of kept them really, really close, and they still tour with me now. My dad's in the band, my mum does the merchandise and all that, and they're really great friends and you know, still spend a lot of time together. And I think, you know, they were really good in the fact that they always let us know that just because the marriage had broken up, it didn't mean the family had broken up, and it never did. I never ever felt like that. But it did break up the band, obviously, because it was a hard time around then. And I'd always thought at one stage I might want to go out and, you know, do something on my own and you know, make a record on my own. But at that point, I didn't sort of feel like I was ready, and then everything sort of fell apart, and I thought, wow, I've got to do something now. I've got to either go and, you know, get a day job or think about making an album, and Nash was really wanting to get into producing at that time, so...
And, of course, your first album, which was never released, called Becky. No, I'm just making that up. Do you have to be melancholy to write a good country song?
Yeah, I think you do, honestly. Yeah, I wrote... Most of my songs I write now and in the past are all when I'm having a down day, you know, and I'm pretty happy most of the time. You know, but
I'm just wondering when you get the time to write.
Yeah, well, I get a lot of people say, oh, you look so happy all the time. How do you write sad songs? But I guess like everyone, you know, you have your down days, and they're the times when I write a song. When I'm happy, I you know, the last thing I want to do is sit in a room by myself and think, you know, think about all the troubled times I've had or anything.
So when you're having a bad day, is there a part of you thinking, great?
Yeah, I've got a song going. Well, I mean, like, I also wrote a lot of songs from the Captain album over the time when my mum and dad did break up. So I was obviously just going through a really emotional time, and kind of, you know, even though the songs aren't particularly about that, it was just sort of going through different emotions, and it brings out songwriting. And I guess a lot of that too came from when I had Talon, you know, and just like, even though that wasn't a sad time, it was quite emotional, and there were certain nights when he just wouldn't sleep. So, you know, and I'm tearing my hair out going, well, at least I get a song out of it tonight.
They're the songs that get louder and louder.
Yeah.
Go to sleep! So, because your songs are quite personal, who's it harder playing them to? Your family, who you play to first, or an audience?
Both, really. I mean, because the thing is, when I'm sitting in a room by myself and I'm writing a song, the last thing on my mind is that I actually have to play it to anybody ever.
Yeah?
You know, it's sort of just about that in the moment every time. And so, yeah, there are a few times that I've got, you know, I usually play them to, like, Corey, my partner, first, and Nash, pretty much. And I play them to Corey first because Corey likes all the songs I write. Nash puts on producer head, and you know, starts picking things at them. So I'm like, I need one person first just to say it's great, and then I'll go to Nash and he can pull it to pieces.
So like a good partner, Corey, like every song, that's the best song you've ever done.
Best song I've ever written.
Yeah. Well, not just that. I mean, I'm going to move you forward to 2002 and the ARIA Awards when you won Best Female Artist. Let's relive the moment.
Kasey Chambers, the captain.
This is Kasey's third aria. She collected the award for Best Country Album last year and received her first aria 3 years ago with the Dead Ringer Band.
Oh, my God. Oh. Thank you. Thank you. I just didn't think people like me won awards like this. Thank you.
Now, you beat Kylie Minogue for Vanessa Amorosi for that award. Is it fair to say for once that the cliche about not expecting it was true?
Very much so. I'm still spun out about that. I don't know how it happened. Some breakdown in the system somewhere.
No, come on.
But, look, that was such a huge thrill. It really was. And, like, the biggest surprise, I'm glad you didn't show all the speech there, because I don't know what I was babbling about. I had no idea.
Don't worry, you were a good 40 minutes less than John Farnham's speech last year, so it's quite all right. So, I mean, really, in many ways, not since the heyday of Chad Morgan's Teeth had country music been cool in the city like this. And it really took off. You were, you know, Vanity Fair shoot. You're in New York to do David Letterman. But you also said at the time that you'd never felt more lost in your life. What were your doubts?
Everything. I went through a funny time when I was writing Barricades, and you know, the Captain had done reasonably well, a lot better than I ever thought it would, and I just was going through a time where you know, am I doing the right thing? Am I on the right track? Am I sort of keeping everything on the ground here? Am I getting carried away with all this? And
how did you know if you weren't?
I didn't. It's like, I went through a lot of songs where I sort of, I mean, Million Tears and This Mountain and songs like that were very much about going through that time of being lost. We were touring a lot in America, and I was away from home a lot. I did a couple of tours, like when my mum wasn't there, and I'd never done that before, and I really did feel quite lost. And I guess, you know, meeting Corey was like a huge help. That was right towards the end of making The Captain when making Barricades when I met him, and that was, you know, I got to fall in love and you know, find out a different side of myself as well, which brought out a whole lot of different songs. So
you're reserved about being too big a star. In a perfect world, what kind of a star would you be?
This one.
This one?
I'm really happy where I am right now. You know, I'm really lucky because I kind of, you know, I get to tour around the country and, you know, go to America a couple of times a year and you know, sell a lot more albums than I ever thought that I would. But I don't have paparazzi following me around or anything, you know. I can take my son out whenever I want and people don't snap pictures of him. So
that's good.
I'm really lucky. I like where I'm at right now.
You're going to be performing your single Like a River for us very shortly, which we're looking forward to at the end of the show. Please thank Kasey Chambers.
Thank you.
Dressed as a nun. You can go to our website, abc.net.au/enough-rope. To take us out tonight from her album Wayward Angel with the song Like a River, here is Kasey Chambers. See you next week. Good night.
Sometimes you walk like a river. Sometimes you walk like a man. Sometimes you crawl like a baby. Makes me forget who I am. Have you ever been held before? Like honey to the bee. I've never been held before. Like you hold me. You make me feel like a river, like a water overflow. Wanna shout it out from the mountains, wanna sing it on the radio. I'd sell my soul like a sinner if it means you never go. I think the sun is finally rising. It's burning down because I miss you. I'm gonna walk right through the fire, 'cause all I wanna do is kiss you. Oh, rainfall won't wash this away. I built a stone wall to make you stay. You make me feel like a river, like a water overflow. Wanna shout it out from the mountains, wanna sing it on the radio. I'd sell my soul like a sinner if it means you never go. You make me feel like a river, like a water overflow. Wanna shout it out from the mountains, wanna sing it on the radio. I'd sell my soul like a sinner if it means you never go. Never go. Never go.